Hi, this is Kendra from Pencil and Pigment, and today is Vlogoween day 14, and I apologize for all the background noise. It's a weekend day, so there's going to be people driving around. I'm doing my best here. But today I thought we would talk about bird eggs. Now I wanted to show you, I am working in a Stillman burn. This is the Epsilon, this is the soft cover. The paper is not 100% cotton, and the glue is made from animal hide, so if you're vegan or having your products vegan is important, this isn't the sketchbook for you. But I kind of wanted to show you my convenience colors when it comes to colored pencils. And again, most of these are the Faber-Castell Polychromos, except for the one that's the Caran d'Ache Luminescence. So I have black, and I have the warm gray, and these ones came in the set of 36, so you don't really have to worry about like adding on and stuff. But here is sepia. Sepia is like, if black is too harsh and I need it warmer, like a hair warmer, I will grab my sepia. Here is walnut brown, which is red based. It is warm. Van Dyke brown is very similar, but it's actually yellow based, and it's kind of hard to see. I have you zoomed in as much as I can. Here's my Carmine Lake, which looks really red abutting the browns. Raw umber and burnt ochre, and I tend to use these for highlights and things like that. But I just thought I'd show you really quick the browns I have and kind of why I have them and how I use them. So these are the ones I have. This is what they look like on white paper. So when it comes to eggs, there's three things you need to keep in mind: size, shape, and color. Okay? Those are the three things you need to keep track of, because not all of them are ovoid, a three-dimensional oval. Some of them are more spherical, like a circle. The other thing is like size. So if you're trying to do something that's hyper realistic or true to size, or you have a picture of the bird and you want it in relation to how big the egg is, you're going to want to keep and be mindful of the egg. So an ostrich egg is a completely different size egg than, say, a bee hummingbird. Those are real small eggs. You know, they're really teeny tiny. And ostrich eggs are really, really huge. So, and then that gets to color. Now this is how I do and draw and create eggs. Now I just watercolored eggs for the first time this year. I had never done it before. It was a lot of fun. I highly recommend, but you can see what I've done in here. The first thing I did when drawing an egg is I laid down a base color. Now this is all in one sitting. This is like a 3 to 5 minute thing of yellow, okay? But what I did to make sure is I lifted, while everything was still damp on the page, this is for you watercolor artists, while everything was still damp, I lifted the center. I lifted the center. And I lifted and lightened the center with the brush and pulled some of the pigment back off. That is how you get the three-dimensional. This is the highlight, and then the edges are the shadow. Now I very well could have lifted over here and made this dark. Remember where the sun is shining, where the highlight is, you need the shadow on the opposing side. I did it face on just because that's how I was in the mood for it. And once this dried, and it had to dry completely, I then went over with a very dry brush of brown and mixed with black. This one's probably sepia. This one looks more brown. This one looks almost Indian red for the pattern and the speckling. And that goes on last once it's completely dry. And it has to be completely dry. Otherwise, the speckling, the lines will fuzz and they'll start to bloom and they'll smear. And with bird eggs, the speckling design is always crisp and always clean. It doesn't always make sense. It's not always symmetrical. It's going to be bigger, smaller, darker, lighter speckles. Keep that in mind when you do the speckle portions. But they have to be crisp and clean lines. So if you take your hand and you hover over where you've watercolored without touching the page, sometimes you can feel the coldness of it lifting, then you know your page is still damp and it's not dry yet. So Watercoloring eggs is definitely a two-step process. You lay down the color, you lift where you want it lighter, you make sure to add a little bit more pigment or color where you want it darker, wait for it to completely dry, and then add the speckles. Now, if you are doing colored pencil, and I'm gonna pull up, I don't know, I'm gonna find an egg picture. I've been looking at hundreds of egg pictures and my mind is starting to blur. Okay, so a house sparrow eggs. I really, really like this picture. It shows 5 eggs. I'm gonna throw it up. And you can see that there's variation between the eggs as well. So not only is there variation within the speckles, their size, how dark or light they are, how clustered or far away they are, the eggs also vary in tonality. So some of them look a little bit more cool toned. The top right one looks like it has a little bit more blue, where the bottom left has a little bit more yellow. Like they're not the same base color. And that's something else to keep in mind when you're laying out eggs next to each other in an illustration. But if we're drawing an egg, right, and we're trying to figure out, like, is it pointing this way? Then this needs to be narrower and this needs to be wider, okay? Depending on how you position your egg and what egg this is. Remember, shape. Keep track of the shapes. And you can always individually look up, like, what do ostrich eggs look like, or ostrich eggs? And then it'll pull up and you can see if they're more oval. Some are really pointy. Some are more uniform. Like there's no sort of point and end. There's been sort of an evolution of egg shape. I can pull up that article. It's from Science News, and it has some really good ones where there's some that are definitely more asymmetrical and some that are more symmetric. But for this picture that I've lost, because that's how I do it. Oh, there it is. I would shadow and shade. It has to be really, really light. Again, work on your blending for colored pencils. This is obviously too dark of a color, but I've already done tons and tons of outlines here. So I kind of want it to coalesce. I'm going to say that right here is where the light is shining. This is going to be, the circle is going to be the brightest point. So everything else needs to fade into that. The bottom is going to be darker. Boy, I could shade this for a half an hour easily. Just going over and over and over again, making sure everything's even. But that is not the funnest demo in the world. So you could even use your finger to blend. And if you don't like the highlight there, you can go back and you can lift. A lot of color pencils can be lifted. Okay, with your blending, with your drawing, you have the lightest point, and then you have the darkest. And then you would go in with the speckles. It could be the same color. I think with a lot of eggs and things, looking at them, there's multiple colors. So I'm going to add some sepia as well, especially along the edges. Like, it looks more interesting if your eggs have a couple different colors, or you just alternate how hard and soft you press down. Some of these are really soft marks. They could be rounder, they could be closer together. They could be really pale, like a freckle, blending in. Just keep track of where your shadow is. We're saying it's along the base here, which makes it pretty easy, and where the highlight is. Now there can be lines and dots and things in here as well. That's a thing you can do. And you can make it more obvious of the shadow and the light if you want to keep going back in and adding layers and working that out. This is a bird egg. This is how I go about doing this. This is what it looks like. I mean, obvious there wouldn't be arrows, but another way to help you is to take like page flags or something and grab one. And if you're drawing an egg, let's do this right here like this. So we're going to draw an egg. And we're saying this is the sunshine. And the sunshine's coming here, which means the shadow is going to be opposite. Shadow, shadow, shade, however you want to do it. And we are drawing a different egg here. We have the top, we have the bottom. So this is going to be, I'm going to press down as hard as I can. Now I lean more towards drawing speckled eggs when I illustrate, just because those eggs I find interesting. I like speckles and spots and dots and stuff. I can't tell you why. I just really like the added texture. I think it makes it more interesting and more engaging when there's patterns. Like I'll always draw a zebra before I draw a horse, just because stripes and, well, animals from Africa are the best. Not biased. Facts. So understanding where the highlight comes from, what angle it is. Now this is just a solid thing. I'm working on my even blending, but I'm also working on practicing highlight and shadow and shape. Okay, light, dark. And this is just with a page flag, and I can move the page flag around. My eggs could be bottom lit or flat on from the side or flat from the front. If you're taking a photo of eggs, then the brightest spot, the light shine, is always going to be the closest thing to the camera lens. It's always going to be here. But if you're drawing from your mind or your imagination, or you have a special light box or some diffuser or something, you can definitely change where you have the light of the egg coming through. Okay? Now, if you want to try different positionings, different ways of presenting eggs, they could be layered in front of each other, besides each other, things like this. Think about just the shell. If it is broken, if it is open, okay? And then what color the inside of the egg is versus the outside. Then you have two different surfaces of color that you need to fill and sort of create. This might be warm on the inside. Maybe it's a little darker towards the bottom. And the outside is the blue. Okay. And again, this is just real quick. You get the idea of what I'm saying. Having eggs that are cracking, that are splitting. I'm going to do the sepia. The things with splits and cracks is you want uneven line weight. You want line weight that doesn't make sense. You want it to look the most amount of natural possible. And that's how I do that. Nothing's uniform. Nothing is the same line weight or strength. And then you have an egg that's cracking. And maybe the light's coming from over here. Okay. You get what I'm throwing down for this egg? This is the egg, and then there's a crack. Now the crack could vary in color. The crack could be the darkest amount of light blue. If you want that to look like it's starting to crack or split, you could just have little itty bitty egg pieces. And then from there, if you want to branch out onto what surface you have these eggs, are they on a kitchen plate? Are they in a nest? Are they on a branch? Are they on the ground? You put them into the context of the story you're trying to tell your audience when you go to draw and create and demonstrate how to do eggs. Eggs are super fun. The other thing you can do with this sort of egg shape is this shape could be how you do your swatches. So if you want to practice egg shapes and maybe layering another color with spots and little dashes and little designs, you could then practice that, and your swatches could be eggs. Like it could all be bird themed. If you get bored and you start to branch out from eggs, there are other things in the world that lay eggs. Here is a snake illustration I did with pen and ink, and it is sort of cracking through an egg with bits of shell and stuff, and it's all texturized from the dirt. So other things lay really beautiful, unique eggs. You can make note of that. I personally really like snakes. That's not for everyone, but just keep in mind when you're creating and doing things, if you fall in love with a specific thing you love to draw and experiment with, maybe you practice different mediums or mixed media, you do a watercolor egg and then you layer over colored pencil on top of it, maybe some Neocolor 2s, I don't know, you collage some pictures, like you can really get into layering and experimenting with eggs. Like it's such a great jumping off point. If you are suffering from like drawing block or drawing boredom and you don't know what to draw, just practicing like ovals and shading and highlighting and doing eggs can be great to sort of do an exercise that just gets you practicing, and then you can just start labeling the eggs. I mean, you can look up on any search engine bird eggs, or you could dye some. Like there's such distinct egg color variations. The American Ornithology Society, I'll throw up a picture. These are eggs from the common mirrors. Look at all the variants of color from just one bird. And you can see these are very pointy at one end and very round in the other. This is a very beautiful photograph. This photo is by J.E. Thompson and T.R. Burkhead. So even within the same bird, there can be tons of variants and things to pull from and try. Like you can just keep diving down with this. There's so many things you can do with bird eggs. If you want to get into like scientific illustration and you want to have the bird, you want to have something it eats, you want to have the egg, you want to have the nest, this is a great adage to sort of an illustration to show sort of the beginning of life. There are also books. I'm going to throw up a couple pictures. There is one. It's called The Book of Eggs, a life-size guide to the eggs of 600 of the world's bird species. Now, I found it on Google Books, but they've removed all the images. So each page identifies a bird and then just the picture of its egg, but the pictures have been removed. So I'll link this book preview, but like I said, it's not very complete. This book's from 2014. It's $49 US dollar. Another one, here's Bird's Eggs. This is an eyewitness handbook. This one is from 1994. Again, just your basic search engine though can pull up so many different types of eggs and things to look at. So just keep in mind the three basic things: the size, the shape, and the color. So keep in mind the size to the proportion. Do you want it to be actual size on the page? And you can denote this to scale or actual size. Or you can even draw a scale, like the Pika scale. And people can know that this one thing equals one inch. And it can be smaller. You can have scales on here. If you want it to be proportionate to anything else on the page, or just how big it actually is to life. The color, this is where color matching comes in. Having a color wheel, making swatches, know how to layer your colors so for accuracy for doing this. And then shape, make sure you have the correct shape. If it comes to a point, denote that. If it's perfectly symmetrical where you cut it in half and it's exactly the same both ways, make sure you have that too, because not all eggs are like that. And that's a very unique feature. And then if you want to delve into cracking and pieces and context of placement. And then, you know, if you decide you want to do an egg from somebody else. Or you want to try drawing eggs and creating eggs in multiple mediums. That is something to consider. I hope this video gave you some ideas. I hope this motivated you, inspired you. I hope this helps. I hope this showed you like why I have all the weird browns I do. I hope you have an absolutely wonderful day, and I will talk to you tomorrow. Bye.